This thing is heavy and my arms are sore. Do I do it like this? Or do I do it like this? Yeah, I read some chonkers. Okay. There's a hair in my eye. Hello everyone, what's up and welcome back to another video. Today I will be discussing all the books that I read in May, as well as a little bit of a book haul. I will have a timestamp down below if you just want to go see the haul. That's completely fine. I know sometimes wrap-ups are really boring. They're not great for me to film because my thoughts always feel jumbled. But I'm going to try and articulate my thoughts as well as I can. Without any further ado, let's just jump right into the video. So the first book for May I read was Ignite Me by Tahira Murphy. If you want to go see the vlog, it's already up. I'll have it linked. And this is basically just about a girl named Juliet who has superpowers. All her life she's been told that her powers are deadly, but she comes to learn that they are more powerful than anyone has ever expected. And she goes on this journey to try and save the world from the re-establishment who has taken over and is trying to use her powers for the greater good, but it's more of a bad thing. There's also like a love triangle in the series, and I think this is the last book technically in the trilogy, although the series continues in Restore Me. I picked it up for Buzzwordathon. The challenge was an eye on the cover. And I really enjoyed this one a lot. There are some of the characters that I thought were annoying. I didn't really like them at all. And I wasn't hoping for a redemption arc from them, but sadly, I think we kind of got one. So yeah, Juliet, I feel she has grown up in the series. From the first book, obviously, to this book, you can really see her growing up and figuring out things for herself without just being told, you know, these are the bad guys and such. And that was really entertaining for me. There is just some things that I didn't like in this book, was the fact that there were quotable quotes in here that really just took me out of the story. I got really annoyed with those parts because for me, it's not the way Juliet thinks. It's really not this mind-blowing thing that she suddenly came up with. I feel like the author just put it in there to make people think, oh wow, I can use this as a quotable quote, and I was just like, it really takes me out of the story. But overall, I think I gave this book either 3.75 or 4-star. I think it was a 3.75. Really enjoyed the world, but there are questions around the ending that I was like, I'm suspicious about this character. So if it's going to continue in the next series, I don't know. I will be picking it up soon. The next book I read was The Bane Chronicles by Cassandra Clare. This is like a series of short stories surrounding Magnus Bane. If you know him from the series, you would know he is like a ultimate fan favorite. So I don't want to tell you a lot about this series or this book because there are short stories and each of them follow like different times in Magnus's life and all of that. So I'm just going to tell you that I gave it a 4 stars because Magnus is my ultimate favorite. Then the next book I read was Face Off by Chelsea Curto. That is also in the vlog that I have linked, and this is an ice hockey romance. So this story follows Emerson or Emmy and Maverick as they try and work together because Emerson is basically the only woman on the hockey team. Maverick thought she was a boy or a guy in the beginning because of the name Emerson. There's this tension between the two because he obviously, thinking that she is a fan of him and not like a fellow teammate, flirted with her, and she made the promise that she will never actually date hockey guys after a disastrous relationship ended with a previous hockey guy. There's a lot to unpack in the story, but just know it's a spicy hockey romance. It is kind of like Icebreaker. I did also check that Icebreaker was published first because in the beginning I was like, this reads a lot like Icebreaker. It does break away from that though. I think the only similarities I pulled from is that they have like that messaging in Icebreaker where the group messages each other and such, and that Emerson is more of a grumpy person, just like Stasia was. There were a lot of correlations, but I really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed the banter between the two because it slowly goes from rivals to lovers to friends with benefits, and then all of a sudden they realize that they really like each other. And what I also liked about this book is there's not really a third act breakup. I think the author does a very nice way of sailing over that. It's just refreshing to read that these two actually started communicating with each other, and they just didn't allow the miscommunication trope to bombard their relationship. So that was quite refreshing. I like the banter and the found family in this, and so I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars because this was a really close book to just making me giggling and kicking my feet and obsessing over it. The only thing that I didn't enjoy about this book is very long. It's over 400 pages, and I was like, why does it need to be this long? So yeah, that was its only downfall. Okay, so because this is a series, I'm gonna review them together. I'm not gonna go in the order I read them. So the series I read was the Dark Artificer series. Sorry, that's very shiny. Lady Midnight, Lord of Shadows, and then Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. It's been a Cassandra Clare month. Let me put it like that. Lady Midnight follows Emma and Julian, how they traverse through their relationship. They are parabatai, and then they realize that they have more feelings for one another. But while this is going on, there are also issues with a warlock trying to kill people around the city for some other dark magic, and he kind of like wreaks havoc in the Shadowhunter world. And so Emma and Julian, they investigated along with their fairy brother, half fairy brother, who has returned from the wild hunt. And it's like this relationship struggle between the family because Mark wasn't always there, and so now he's trying to be part of this family who has grown up without him. So there's that turmoil happening. There's also the turmoil happening between Emma and Julian because they cannot be together because they're parabatai. It's illegal, you know, that whole spiel. And then obviously the mystery with who killed Emma's parents. She's trying to investigate that while also trying to investigate this mysterious killings happening in the city. The ending of this book really had me hooked, and I was like, oh, I need to know what happens next. I think I did give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars originally, but the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I'm giving it a 4 star just because I like the elements of it, I like the writing, but there was just something missing for me. And then we get to Lord of Shadows, and this one was a bit more messy. I'm not going to delve into it because just now somebody wants to read, you know, like the whole series, and just now I spoiled something. But just know the issues continue for a lot of the characters. But the push and pull between Emma and Julian got a bit much, and I started getting annoyed with some of the characters that were in here. They were just being stupid. There was no communication. This was miscommunication at best. The thing I liked about it was we were more in fairy, so you could see more of the fairy realms in it, and I think it just, well, my book almost fell. It paves the way for Cassandra Clare's new series, which I believe is about one of the fairies in the series. So yeah, there were a lot of things that I felt were missing in this book, so I gave it a 3.5. And then we get to the problem child, which is Queen of Air and Darkness. Queen of Air and Darkness, my bad. I'm just gonna put the books like here because my arm is sore. This book was too long. I didn't enjoy this book as much. There were passages in this book that I thought could have been taken out, characters and things in this book that I was like, okay. Miscommunication continued, so I got really annoyed with that. I think the only part I cared about this book was the last chapter and the epilogue, because the last chapter had something really nice in it, and the epilogue was, it's finally done. But also it paves way for something to come. So yeah, that was the only part I enjoyed about this book. So I think the writing as well, I still adore Cassandra Clare's writing, so that just bumped it up, and I gave it a 3 stars. But just know that the series is definitely not my favorite of her. I was continuously bored with this one, and I was hoping it would end sooner. We read this over 7 days, my bestie and I, and eventually we were just like, can this end? It's just beginning to get too much, and we are not enjoying it. Overall, I think I'm going to give the series a 3.5 out of 5 star. The next book I read was Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. This is the first book I read from this author, and I see a lot of people giving hype for the second book. I can't remember what it's called, but the book really intrigued me, and I wanted to go as a series because it's a standalone series. I don't know why I did that to myself because in the end, I didn't enjoy this book as much as I think everyone else did. Everyone said it was like a very traumatic romance for them and they really enjoyed that. It's basically called a tromance or something. In this book, we follow Yasmin and Josiah, and they had divorced, I think, about a year ago because of extremely emotional circumstances that happened to the family. And Yasmin, she felt very claustrophobic. She suffers from anxiety and I think depression and a lot of stuff. So she essentially called for the divorce or asked for the divorce, and this just, you know, like rammed a thing between her relationship between her and her daughter, as well as her and Josiah. And eventually, you know, she starts realizing that she's still in love with her ex-husband, even though he's gallivanting with someone else. And she's also trying to bring him back to normal life after the divorce and trying to go back to normal and, you know, just trying to live a life after the experiences, especially regarding her children. She's trying to stay afloat for her children. But I think the thing that didn't click for me was the fact that the second chance romance really just, it dragged, and then only at 70% we get this, oh, they're going for it. And I was like, I feel like we needed to build more momentum with it. There's also a point where Josiah didn't want to go to couples therapy because he just didn't believe in therapy, but he eventually went to therapy for his son because his son is like super smart. His son had to go to therapy to make sure that if he skips a grade, then he will be fine. But Josiah then decided to support his son, he will also go to therapy. And you don't see a lot of his growth in therapy because he's not there long, but instantly in the first session he realizes that opening up to this therapist will actually help him. And I was like, that's really quick growth for someone who actually doesn't believe in therapists. Not that I say that that cannot happen, it just didn't feel right with the tone of the book, especially when he was this big advocate of not going to therapy, and all of a sudden he just feels this instinct to open up to a therapist. And I was like, I was hoping for a bit more pushback. And as I've said, also the romance, it was so slow until the very last, and I was like, oh, we're moving so fast. So I would have liked to see more growth from the characters and also a lot more push and pull. I think I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed the conversation that it has around the trauma bond, not the trauma bonding, but the experience as a woman and as a mother and what you go through. I really enjoyed that part, but other than that, it was just too much for me. Too much and too fast. The next book I read was Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. I'm not going to give any thoughts or feelings about this book because I want to keep my thoughts for my shelf destruct video that's coming up in July. So I'm thinking I don't want to spoil anything because then you're not going to go see the vlog. Just know this is the story of Ariadne and how she tries to save this handsome young man from the clutches of the Minotaur, who is also her brother. I think that's all I'm going to give you. It's a Greek retelling. The last books I read were also Cassandra Clare, but they were from 2 different series. So the first book is the Ghosts of a Shadow Market. This one. And this is also a collection of short stories. It mainly centers one of the characters in the Infernal Devices. I don't want to give a lot away because it might be spoilers. So it centers that character and just how they are trying to find a lost Herondale, as well as struggling with their feelings for another character who's also in the Infernal Devices. So I just didn't enjoy the short stories. There was one short story that centered around Alec and Magnus that I really, well, more Alec than anyone else, but I really enjoyed that short story. That was the only short story that I was like, oh yeah, I can see myself loving this part of the story. But the rest of the stories I just found so boring and so unnecessary. It is nice to see from the Infernal Devices before the epilogue of the last book how things progressed and what happened between those 100 years, but other than that I was just like, I'm bored. I don't care. So the last 2 books I actually read summaries of, or the last 2 stories. No, actually the last 3, because I just couldn't care. Didn't want to suffer through it, so that is what I did. Because I read the summaries, I wanted to be generous. I'm giving this a 3-star, but take my words with a grain of salt. And the last books I read for May was Swordcatcher and the Ragpicker King by Cassandra Clare. As I've said, it was a very big Cassandra Clare month, but I'm so happy I read these. Swordcatcher is about this boy named Cal who is sent to the castle to become essentially the sword catcher for the young prince in the castle. And what he basically does is he is like his double. He goes to places where there is danger, and if for some apparent reason the prince will be killed, Cal will be killed in his place. Then we also follow Lynn, who is a healer, and she is embroiled eventually in a later stage in their lives, and it's a big mess. It is Cassandra Clare's adult fantasy series, and so after the events of this book we just continue with the Ragpicker King, and I really enjoyed these two books. These were such refreshing books to read, especially because I think they are more adult stories, so there's more exploration and there's just more fun things to read about. I didn't think I was going to be as attached to these characters as I am, but I picked up this book and I finished reading it, and I told my bestie I need to read the second book right now. I didn't have the copy yet because there was a delay in the delivery of this one. So I read it on Everend, and I really enjoyed this. So this is a 4-star and this is a 5-star because this is just, it was such an amazing book. The ending had me floored because there was so many reveals regarding some of the characters, and I was like, I am shooketh and I need the next book now, and we don't know when the next books are coming out, so suffer. We are suffering. Anyway, those are the 11 books I read in the month of May. Let's just jump into my book haul. Okay, so the first book I need to show you is basically a book that was sent to me by my work colleague because it's my birthday this month in June, not May. And so she decided to send me this book for my birthday, and I have no self-control, so I opened the gift, I think 2 days ago. But it is A Language of Dragons by Sev Williamson. This is a book that both she and I read, I think 2 months ago. Really enjoyed this book, and I'm dying to see what the next book is going to be about. But yeah, it's a hardcover. It has these sprayed edges, which is so gorgeous. And then the inside, the naked hardcover looks like this. It's very old, very shiny, so like this. And then it says in the back here, hear the call, ignite the revolution. I just love it so much. And then the end pages, I think they just look like this and this, so it's insane. Oh no, it's not the same. I lie. This is so pretty. Oh, I love it so much. Is it the same? No, it's not. Strange. Anyway, so yeah, I really love this book. It is going somewhere on my shelves. I just need to find a place where, because yeah, I want to display it. So the book says here, London 1923, dragons soar through the skies and protests erupts on the streets, but Vivian Featherswallow isn't worried. She's going to follow the rules and get an internship studying dragon languages. By midnight, Viv has started a civil war. I feel like I need to leave it at that because yeah, things happen in the first 3 chapters of this book that just escalates this whole book, and it's very difficult for Viv because she's such a rule follower to actually just believe that what the government has told them all their lives is actually so wrong and so morally wrong. It's a journey with Vivian and a whole cast of characters who are being told to study A Language of Dragons. That is basically the only physical book I got. The rest are from Kindle. So it doesn't take up shelf space, but it takes up space on my Kindle. The first book is Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. I don't think I should tell a lot of you what it is about. It's a cowboy romance. But I feel like this book has been, or the series has been so hyped that I don't need to tell you about it because I also don't know a lot about it. Okay. The next trilogy I got was the Empyrean trilogy by Claire Legrand, and this is both I think it's Fairyborn, Kingsbane and Lightbringer. So this caught my attention because BookBub, I think, made the trilogy like it's a free trilogy, or they advertised that the trilogy was free, and I was like, yeah, if it's free, I'm gonna take it. And it says here, Fairyborn is a thrilling new high fantasy trilogy about a magic wielding queen and a ruthless bounty hunter that are separated by centuries but connected by prophecy. And I was like, okay, sign me up. I've been looking for, you know, like old-timey medieval high fantasy series, and yeah, this one just caught my attention. And also the cover, I mean, and it's also available on Kindle Unlimited, so I only realized that after I bought the books. The next book that I bought was Servant of the Crown. This is a high fantasy series about a stubborn old warrior who is just determined not to die, and an heir who has been hidden away, or a prince or princess who has been hidden away for their whole lives. And as I've said, I just wanted a lot more high fantasy stories because I feel like I've been diving too much into romantasy. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I want some more, how can I say, books that take me longer and that just suck me in, and I was hoping this one would do it. It was also free. I think the first 3 books were free, but I only got a selection of the 1 book, so I was like, yeah, okay, why not? The next book I got was Raphael by Laurel K. Hamilton. If you've been on my channel for a while, you would know that I love all Laurel K. Hamilton's books, essentially the Anita Blake series, because that is like the only series that I am familiar with that she is writing. Raphael, I think, is the next book after Circus of the Damned. I have a physical copy of Circus of the Damned, but I don't have a physical copy of Raphael, and I was like, yeah, if it's on special, I'm gonna get it. I think it was $1.99, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna take it, because if it's that cheap, I'm taking it. The next book is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. This book was also on special. I think it was $7, something along those lines. And I was like, if this book that is usually so hyped even before it goes on sale is that cheap, then I am going to buy it. And I think it's just over 100 Rand for me or something. And this is about 2 people who fall in love. One is a vet, one is a social media marketing manager, I believe. How they are trying to defy odds by being in a long distance relationship. I love Abby Jimenez's work. I have read 2 of her books so far, and I really enjoyed them. So I don't think this one can go wrong for me. Hopefully not. Let me not jinx it. The next one is Under an Amber Sky by Rose Alexander. And I bought this one, I think, because I thought it was going to be part of my magical readathon experience. And then I realized it's a book about the country I chose and not about a writer who's from the country. So that was an oopsie from my side. But it was also a very cheap book, so, you know, I think it was $3 something. So I was just like, yeah, okay, I'll buy it. But it says here, when Sophie Taylor's life falls apart, there's only one thing to do: escape and find a new one. Dragged to Montenegro by her best friend Anna, Sophie begins to see the light at the end of a very dark tunnel. But when she stumbles into an old rundown house on the Bay of Kotor, she surprises even herself when she buys it. Surrounded by old furniture left behind by the former inhabitants, Sophie becomes obsessed by a young Balkan couple when she discovers a bundle of letters from the 1940s in a broken roll-top desk. Letters that speak of great love, hope, and a mystery Sophie can't help but get drawn into. Days in Montenegro are nothing like she expected. As Sophie's home begins to fill with a motley crew of lodgers, the house by the bay begins to breathe again, and for Sophie, life seems to be restarting. But letting go of the past is easier said than done. Okay, sounds like a cool love story. The next book is called The Howling Moon, and it looks like a Viking story retelling, because it says here, chosen by Odin, destined by Valhalla. In my dreams, Odin whispers to me. He tells me I'm destined to wield a legendary sword. Yeah, okay. I'm looking for more like mythology type of books, or even more Viking inspired stories. So I thought this one would be quite nice. It's 237 pages, so it's not too long. And if it sucks me in, there's 8 books in the series that I can continue with. Great, more series for me to start. Then the last book that I got was basically an ARC I received from Booktuber, and it is Death at a Paris Hotel by Verity Bright. And this is basically just the shenanigans that Lady Eleanor Swift gets up to when she's on vacation and then somebody dies, and she and her fiance, which is now her husband, I believe, and her butler try and solve the crime. It's a cozy mystery. It's always just fun to read, especially when you want like a palate cleanser. Those are all the books that I bought recently and all the books that I read in May. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember to like and subscribe. Let me know down below which books you maybe bought this month or last month. And I'll see you in a new video next week. Bye! My throat is so dry. Very, very dry.